This is the Door Roller Money Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Berger. Today in episode 360, we're going to talk about the past, the present, and the future. Hey everybody, it's good to be back. It feels like I've come back to a group of old friends that I haven't seen in a long, long time. And I am thrilled to be here. And I think it's been like over a year and a half since, maybe a year, since there's been any podcast published, any Door Roller Money podcast published, but it's been much, much longer since they've been published in sort of the traditional Door Roller Money podcast, format, which is just basically me sitting behind a microphone talking about who knows what. Actually, today I'm also behind the camera, so you will be able to see this on YouTube, but this is very much a podcast first episode. And I kind of want to tell you where I've been, where I am now, and what the future looks like for us. And so that's what this edition of the Door Roller Money Podcast is going to do. So, and yes, it's on YouTube, and I'll explain all that in a minute, but obviously you're probably, at least initially, listening to this in your favorite podcast player. So, some history. And many of you might know this, I don't know, but I started doorroller.net in 2007. It was actually 2 years before that I had my aha moment. That was the moment where I said, you know what? The best thing money can buy is financial freedom. That was sort of the moment when I said, it's great to have some nice things in life, and if I can have nice things, I'll get them, maybe, whatever that means to me, but never at the sacrifice of my financial freedom, which meant saving some money, investing it wisely, getting out of debt, and all those sorts of things. That was 2005, June 15th. I remember the day. And 2 years later, I started doorroller.net. It was kind of, back then, it was kind of fun just to be able to build a website, a blog, and write about things that interest me, personal finance and investing. And so I just enjoyed it. It was a hobby. It ended up becoming a business. It allowed me to retire from the practice of law. And then I started this podcast. Actually, it was Veterans Day, November 2013, and interviewed a good friend of mine named Ryan, and who was former Air Force, and we talked about ways veterans can get deals. I think that was the first episode, but that was 360 episodes ago. It was a long time ago. But here's the thing, as many of you know, in 2018, I had the opportunity to sell everything, and it was a good deal for me. But the good news then was I was going to stay on and continue to do the podcast, and I did. But in 2018, I sold doorroller.net, I sold the newsletter, I sold this podcast, the YouTube channel, everything. But I continued to do the podcast, as many of you know, for a number of years, actually, pretty much in the exact same format. The owners wanted to switch the format a couple of years ago, so it was much more of an interview style, I think more edited kind of experience. I don't know that it went over very well with some folks. The ratings for the podcast kind of went down a bit, but I thought it was a good format and certainly worth trying. That's what they wanted to do. And but I ended up leaving the podcast. I got busy actually with another YouTube channel, The Rob Berger Show, which I'll talk about in a minute. But so I left the podcast, and that was like, I don't know, a year ago, I guess. It was really longer than that, but I think we had some shows recorded that they continued to publish. It was probably more like a year and a half ago that I stopped producing new shows. And so that brings us to the present. It's like, well, wait a minute, Rob, why are you back? Well, the company that bought doorroller.net had bought a number of other personal finance sites, and this year they decided to sell them all. They were going to exit the personal finance space. So they reached out to me and they said, hey, Rob, would you like to buy doorroller.net back? And I said, no, I don't think so. Well, it wasn't exactly what I said. I really didn't think it was going to happen, but then we got back together, we worked it out, and this week I bought back doorroller.net, the newsletter, this podcast, the YouTube channel, everything. It's like I've come home again. And so one of the first things I did was fire up the microphone, and now I'll turn on the camera and record this episode. So we got the past, that's the present. I'm back. For better or worse, I'm back. So what does the future look like for Door Roller in general, but for this podcast in particular? So to answer that question, I do need to go back into the past a little bit. About a year and a half or 2 years ago, I started recording videos a YouTube channel just called The Rob Berger Show. If you go into YouTube and you search Rob Berger, you'll find it. And loved that experience. I love creating videos. It's worked out really well. I think I help a lot of people. I certainly get a ton of email from folks saying that that I've been of some assistance and help for them. That show is aimed at investing and retirement, with sort of the target audience being those that are in or near retirement. Now, a lot of younger folks watch, and hopefully it's beneficial to them, but that's sort of the target demographic, folks that are in or near retirement. How do you invest? How do you figure out how much you can spend each year without going broke? Those sorts of questions. How do you generate a retirement paycheck from your investments? These are questions that probably most 20 and 30-year-olds aren't asking. Not yet, but when you're old like I am, you start thinking about these things. So that's the Rob Berger Show on YouTube. So now, bringing us back to this podcast and the Dough Roller YouTube channel, here's my plan. I'm going to record one podcast episode a week, just like I used to do in the past. It's going to be, for the most part, just me getting behind a microphone and talking about some topic. And all of the topics are going to be geared towards helping folks take control of their money and achieve financial freedom. That's the goal. If an episode doesn't help someone do one of those things, take control of their money and then achieve financial freedom, then I've failed. Every episode, so I don't know, maybe this episode will be a fail. This is sort of an administrative episode. But that's the goal of the Dough Roller Money podcast. I will publish it on YouTube. So if you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see my ugly face in the video, but I see this as a sort of podcast first type of recording. So I'm not going to be showing you my computer screen, which I do a lot in the Rob Berger Show. It's just going to be me talking. Occasionally I might have some guests on the show, but primarily me. But again, I will publish it to the YouTube channel. But I'm also going to do other videos for the Dough Roller YouTube channel. Again, the focus will be helping folks take control of their money and achieve financial freedom, but they'll be on a specific topic. I'll often show you my computer screen, show you whatever app I'm talking about or resource. And so I'll have those in addition, but this podcast is going to be, well, pretty much what you're experiencing right now. And so that's how I kind of want to divide it up. For many folks, hopefully they'll find both the Dough Roller podcast and YouTube channel helpful, and the Rob Berger Show on YouTube helpful. I do publish, by the way, the Rob Berger Show, the audio to a separate podcast. Again, just called the Rob Berger Show. I'm trying to get more consistent with that. So kind of two different approaches. Again, Dough Roller is going to be, how do you take control of your money and achieve financial freedom? The Rob Berger Show is kind of like, once you've done that, now what do you do? How do you actually, maintain that financial freedom, and how do you, spend your money, after you've achieved that, which I think for most people sort of coincides with retirement. So that's kind of how I see the two different YouTube channels and podcasts. And so there you go. So that's it. My plan for next week, actually, I think my episode on next week is going to be 3 sort of hacks to budgeting. 3 simple strategies you can use to make budgeting easier, and not a 4-letter word. A lot of folks don't like budgeting. So that's what I think next week's going to be. But that's the kind of show that I see for this podcast. I'm thrilled to be back. I hope many of you, will continue to listen and now to watch on YouTube if you prefer. I'm very much looking forward to all of your emails. I'll have more information as we go, like how to contact me on the Dough Roller Show, which is going to be different than the Rob Berger Show. But I should have more of that for you next week. So that's it. Looking forward to the future. Happy to be back. And so I'll just end as I end every show on both YouTube channels and just say to everyone, remember, until next time, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.